You're standing in an old warehouse. Something small drops onto your wrist. A pinch, a sting. You barely notice. But somewhere in a comic book universe, that pinch just changed everything. If it actually happened to you in the real world with real physics and real biology, the story wouldn't end with you swinging between skyscrapers. It would end a lot faster than that, and a lot less heroically. So what would actually happen if a spider bit you after crawling through radioactive material? First, you need to understand what radiation actually does to a living cell. It doesn't add power. It doesn't add ability. Radiation breaks things. Specifically, it breaks the bonds inside DNA. The billions of letters of instructions telling every cell in your body what to build and when. Radiation is like tearing random pages out of that instruction manual, then setting fire to a few more for good measure. Cells have repair systems for this. Small amounts of damage get patched, but too much damage too fast and the repair systems get overwhelmed. The cell doesn't gain a new function. It usually just dies. Or worse, it survives with the wrong instructions and starts copying itself incorrectly forever. There's a word for that: cancer. Now picture the spider. A spider that survived enough radiation to gain super spider strength would not be scuttling around a ceiling. It would almost certainly be dead. Insects are more radiation resistant than humans, cell for cell. But resistant doesn't mean immune. And it definitely doesn't mean ape-graded. Let's be generous. Say the spider survives and bites you. What's actually in that bite? Spider venom is a cocktail of proteins built over millions of years for one purpose: killing insects. Nothing in that recipe interacts with human muscle, eyesight, or reflexes. If it picked up trace radioactive material along the way, that material behaves like what it is: a contaminant. Here's where the story gets genuinely dangerous. If you were injected with certain radioactive isotopes, your body wouldn't treat them as neutral. Some chemically resemble nutrients your body already looks for. Radioactive iodine gets pulled straight into your thyroid because your thyroid can't tell it apart from normal iodine. Radioactive strontium gets mistaken for calcium and built directly into your bones. Once it's inside, it doesn't leave quickly. It just keeps emitting, keeps damaging nearby cells, day after day from the inside. Researchers learned this the hard way from the survivors studied after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and later, the workers exposed during Chernobyl in 1986. What they found wasn't sudden transformation. It was the opposite: damage showing up slowly. Cancers years later, blood disorders, harm compounding quietly over time. So the real version of this bite doesn't look like a montage of you discovering you can stick to walls. It looks like a burn at the bite site. It looks like nausea within hours, because your gut lining divides fast, making it one of the first tissues radiation damage takes down. It looks like a drop in white blood cells within days, because your bone marrow is extremely radiation sensitive too. And depending on the dose, it might look like nothing dramatic at all for years. Just a quietly elevated risk, sitting in the background of your life. Is there a real question buried in here somewhere? Could radiation ever push a cell toward a genuinely useful mutation instead of just breaking it? In theory, yes. That's technically how evolution works. Mutation is the raw material of change, and radiation is one of many things that can cause it. But evolution isn't a montage. It's millions of individuals over millions of years, with the overwhelming majority of mutations doing nothing useful and plenty doing active harm. The rare beneficial one only matters because it gets tested across an entire population over enormous spans of time. A single person bitten once doesn't get that luxury. This is why the radioactive spider story works so well as fiction and so poorly as fact. Comic books compress deep time into one dramatic moment, handing you a result that would realistically take generations of coincidence all in one afternoon for free. Maybe that's exactly why it's so appealing. It's a shortcut past everything your body has spent hundreds of millions of years building through slow, brutal trial and error. So no, a radioactive spider bite would not give you the ability to climb walls. It would not sharpen your senses. What it would actually do is put your cells through a rushed, chaotic, one-time trial run of a process that normally takes evolution millions of years and millions of failures to get right. You're standing in an old warehouse. Something small drops onto your wrist. A pinch. A sting. And somewhere in the real world, that pinch is not an origin story. It's a trip to the emergency room.